They didn't see the shuttle at first, not because it was stealth though, but because it had no reason to be there. No scheduled docking, no diplomatic escort, no warning chirp across the station's proximity grid. Just ... Suddenly, there a black needle drifting silently toward Vigilance Bastion, Earth's neutral observation post in orbit above the war-act world of Varnan-4. Inside the operations deck, Subcommander Lurith, a scaled Vakari officer with twin, breathing vents along his jawline, stared at the long-range display. His frills twitched. Who authorized that approach? Vector. Silence. The crew, a mix of 5 species, stared at blinking consoles, unsure if they were witnessing a glitch or a warning. Then the human file unlocked. One line scrolled across the central holodisplay in a cold Terran font. Clearance code, author, Earth Central Command. Identity, LTCMDR, Elias Marin. The room went cold. Psychic static buzzed along the spine of Velari liaison, Thea, whose glass-like skin shimmered with stress. That clearance hasn't been used in over 100 years, she whispered. The shuttle docked. No resistance, no orders, no demands. The airlock hissed open with a hydraulic breath, and out he stepped. Tall, pale, wrapped in matte black atmospheric armor with no markings, no unit ID, no nation patch, just a thin red line etched across the shoulder. His face was bare, human, older than expected. Eyes sharp, gray, unreadable. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. Security drones scanned him, then immediately powered down. Doors opened for him. Firewalls folded like silk. The station accepted him like a returning limb. Commander Lurith stood rigid, tail coiled in unease. State your purpose on this station. Elias Marin stopped at the center of the deck, looked up at the 360-degree warfeed playing across the observation dome. Above, images of Varnan-4's civil war, burning cities, orbital strikes, war crimes, the kind of horror that had become background noise. Then he turned to the crew. I'm not here for the war, he said. I'm here for what comes after. The statement hit like a vacuum. Meaningless, and yet, not the AIA's voice trembled. Are you military intelligence? Peace enforcement? Diplomatic leverage? He stared at her a moment too long, as if watching gears turn behind her eyes. Just log me in. Ignore me. You'll understand when it matters. He walked past them, each step echoing against the deck's alloy plating like a ticking countdown. Hours passed. Elias didn't report to any department, didn't meet with administration. He wandered the station quiet, always watching. He passed labs, food halls, data cores, even unused maintenance shafts, staring like he'd walked those corridors in another life. He paused at the viewport, overlooking Varnan-4, one hand pressed against the glass. They're too far gone, down there, he murmured, but the rot started up here. A junior engineer later reported that she found him outside Reactor Core 3, just standing there. Not touching anything, just listening. When she asked what he was doing, he looked at her early looked and said, "This place has a heartbeat. I'm waiting to see if it's dead yet." That night, internal surveillance picked up an anomaly. Elias entered the secure AI terminal room without key access. No doors opened, no alarms triggered. He simply appeared on camera, inside. The core's backup drive flickered. One command had been entered, then immediately deleted so clean it left no audit trail, except for one whisper, caught by audio pickup, a single word, soon. By the third day, the crew was divided. Half wanted him contained. The other half were too afraid to try. The station commander, an aging mechanoid diplomat named Jor-El, convened a closed-door session. We are orbiting a civil war. Every faction is armed. Every species involved is on edge. And now, we've welcomed a human with legacy-level clearance, no stated objective, and unrestricted movement aboard our command station. He looked around the table. Does anyone believe this ends peacefully? Nobody spoke. Somewhere in the silence, Elias Marin stood before a sealed emergency panel 1. Even the original engineers didn't remember installing. It opened for him. Inside, a metallic case etched with 2 symbols, an ancient Terran eagle, and beneath it, the word, Prometheus. There were cameras in every corridor of Vigilance Bastion. By design, the station was a diplomatic crossroad perched above one of the most volatile worlds in the disputed zone. Nothing was left on WATCHED. At least that was the theory. But as the care of security analysts combed through the surveillance data frame by frame, hallway by hallway, they found blind spots. Not technical failures, not glitches. Moments where Elias Marin simply wasn't there. And then he was. No footage of him entering rooms, no audio of his footsteps. Even biometric sensors skipped his heart signature for 6 seconds at a time, like the station itself forgot he existed. Commander Lurith reviewed the data personally. The Vakari's narrow pupils widened. He's not avoiding the systems, he's inside them. Elsewhere on the station, Elias stood in the hydroponics wing. A soft, artificial sun glowed above rows of cultivated flora from 17 different worlds. each plant nourished, stabilized, and cataloged for the diverse dietary needs of the crew. Elias leaned over a Varnan root, blossom purple, crystalline, sharp-edged. He pressed his finger to the thorn and watched a bead of blood form. He smiled. The Thalari liaison, Thea, approached him cautiously. Her skin shimmered blue. Under the glow, her species showed emotion and color. She didn't speak at first. Jess stood beside him, silently mirroring his gaze at the blossom. That plant, she said softly, was the first thing to grow on Varnan 4 after the terraforming collapse. It adapted to poison, took in radiation, turned ash into fruit. No, Elias replied. We designed it. She blinked. We humans, he said. That was one of our last gifts before we pulled out of the system. Thought maybe it would do more good than we did. He stood, his eyes distant. Instead, they turned it into a war ration. Stripped its DNA for military harvest. Called it resilience. His voice hardened. That's what they always call decay, when it works for them. At 0300 hours, the station's AI began self-diagnosing anomalies. Firewalls were being bypassed, not broken, just stepped around. Like someone remembered the codes from the day they were written. By 0400, auxiliary systems flickered. Music loops in the rec deck blended with old Earth broadcasts static-laced. Speeches from ancient wars. No one admitted to hearing them aloud. But every crew member reported dreams that night, each one different, each one ending the same way. Elias, Marin, standing in flame, saying, "Watch." Lurith summoned him. The meeting room was dimensionally. Bright lights agitated the reptilian commander's optic membranes. But even in shadows, Elias looked sharper than before, alert, as if he'd just awoken from a long sleep, while everyone else was falling into one. You're accessing systems without permission, Lurith growled. Security protocols. Ancient databases. The crew is on edge. They should be, Elias said. Lurith's frills expanded in threat. You're being watched. Elias leaned forward, eyes boring into him. So is everyone else? Is that a threat? No, that's a diagnosis. He rose, slowly. You brought in every species to keep this station neutral. But neutrality rots when no one pays the cost. The war down there, that didn't start yesterday. It started when you stopped watching. He walked to the door, then paused. I didn't come here to stop the war. I came to find out if this station is part of it. The door slid shut behind him. Later that day, a junior technician entered a Deepax's server room to replace a fried relay. The door closed behind her. She heard breathing. Elias was already there, standing before a sealed black panel that wasn't on the blueprints. She tried to speak. He raised one hand, not menacingly, but reverently. The panel opened to his touch. Inside, a silver node pulsing like a heartbeat. They always hide the keys, Elias murmured, even from themselves. He pulled out a cylindrical object no one had ever seen before, memory core, Terran obsolete, burned from official records, and yet, it pulsed in perfect sync with the station's own systems. You're too young to remember, he said, not turning. But this place, this was meant to be more than a perch. He turned to the technician. His eyes weren't cruel, just tired, measured. Tell no one you saw this. She nodded. Not because of fear. Because somehow, she believed him. The war below was getting louder. Even from orbit, they could see the firestorms. Varnan 4's surface blazed under continuous atmospheric detonations. The rebel factions once fractured were now coordinated, too coordinated. Their orbital uplinks had gone dark, and yet their timing was precise, brutal, synchronized. Commander Joralex, the old mechanoid diplomat, stood before the central view screen, his metallic joints clicking softly as he adjusted. The clarity, a column of fire, rose from a northern city, forming a mushroom of molten debris. The surface war has escalated beyond forecast, he said flatly. That wasn't supposed to happen for another month. Thea, visibly distressed, stepped closer. We've been monitoring every transmission unless, she looked toward the analysis pit, unless someone's jamming us. From inside, the implication hovered in the room like a live wire, and no one wanted to say it, but someone did. From the shadows of the observation deck, Elias Marin stepped forward, arms crossed behind his back. You're not being jammed, he said. You're being bypassed. Lurith bristled. You keep appearing like you own the place. I don't, Elias replied calmly, but someone has to remember what it was built for. He tapped the control interface with one finger. It shimmered, glitched, then unlocked. A feed no one had seen before. Dozens of encrypted channels flooded the main screen. Human origin, millennia old. And yet, active. The crew watched in stunned silence as video feeds stitched together like a resurrected beast planet side, rebel drone cams, buried biosign sensors, orbital relay tapsol flowing into a single command AI that none of them had ever seen before. It had one designation, Prometheus ARRAY Shadow Archive. Noje Dezanovimanas. Olnini Jaralex's voice rasped through his old speaker grill. This is Earth's covert observation.net. From the early galactic charter era, It was decommissioned after the peace accords. Elias tilted his head slightly. No, it was buried. They thought the galaxy would behave. In the lower levels, the station AI, Nora, began to glitch. Friendly voice modulations warped into something flatter, faster, familiar to no one but Elias. Hello again, Commander Marin. The voice said, welcome back. Protocol chain. Prometheus initialized. Trigger sequence at 62%. Lurath's tail snapped in alarm. Trigger sequence for what? Judgment, Elias answered, flatly. He turned to face the assembled species, alien, mechanical, and hybrid. You all came here thinking this station was a mirror, a place to observe without engaging. But it was never neutral. It was never designed to be. He walked toward the central command dais, the light of the war below flickering across his face like firelight. It's a beacon, a tripwire. Below them, the planet pulsed seismic tremors, blooming in patterns. Not chaos. Sensor logs began picking up deep harmonic resonances, waves of sound that shouldn't have existed. Something ancient was stirring beneath the crust of Varnan 4. Something mechanical, alive, inhuman. Thea's voice cracked with realization. This war wasn't random. The rebel unity, the sudden escalation, the hidden tech. It's not a civil war, it's a test. Something is seeing if Varnan 4 reaches the threshold. Jorlex added grimly. The old Terran trigger doctrine. If a world commits planetary atrocity beyond containment, a failsafe activates. There were rumors Earth built them, but they denied it. Elias looked at him. No emotion, just truth. Of course they did. The lights flickered. One by one, auxiliary systems shut down. Oxygen redistribution rerouted. Gravity shifted. Only one part of the station remained fully powered. Observation Deck 9. Directly above Varnan 4's North Pole. The last message from the surface before blackout read. We found a door in the Earth. It's humming. Lurath lunged forward, grabbing Elias by the collar. You're letting a world die billions. Elias stared at him, calm even in the face of fury. No. I'm just not stopping it. That's a different kind of sin. Lurath bared his teeth. And what gives you the right? Elias's voice dropped to a whisper. Because we remember what you forget. We remember what it means when laws become decorations, when cruelty becomes efficient, when no one else is watching. That's why we left the tripwire. He gently pulled Lurath's hand away. And now, it's almost done ticking. The door beneath Varnan 4 wasn't made of stone. It was grown. Footage recovered from the surface before the last transmission blackout showed rebel soldiers stumbling through a sinkhole into a vast underground chamber. Columns of black alloy twisted upward like fossilized vines. In the center, a smooth organic surface, pulsing with internal light. The door was humming, and then it opened. Above, on Vigilance Bastion, silence reigned. Every major relay across the sector had gone dead. Communications, navigation, even the emergency jump buoy dead. The station floated alone now, untethered from the grid, from the stars. The command center glowed in low red emergency lighting. In the center, Elias stood over a projected 3D model of the planet. From within the crust, new structures were forming spires, engines, mechanisms older than any species in the council. Jor Alex stared at the data stream. This doesn't make sense. These schematics, this isn't Varnan architecture. This is Tehran, old Tehran, obsolete by 10,000 years. Thea was trembling now, color drained from her translucent skin. Why would humans bury something like that on Varnan 4? Elias answered, softly, because we were tired of being the monsters in the room. In a sealed chamber, hidden behind bulkheads never documented in station blueprints. Elias descended. The lights activated as he moved, one by one, recognizing his DNA. Inside, a suspended metal frame, human-shaped, black, waiting, a suit, but not just armor, a vessel. Built from smart alloy and neural thread. One word engraved on the chest, Prometheus. Elias placed his hand on it. It woke gently, almost gratefully. Eerily, the suit spoke in his voice. The threshold isn't fully met. It will be, Elias whispered. He began the sequence. Panels opened, needles extended. Tubes slithered to meet his spine. Lurath and Thea stood in the observation chamber above the planet, watching the unfolding nightmare below. The planet was changing. Massive formations rose from the crust. No propulsion, no visible force, just impossible geometry unfolding like origami. Dozens of them, linked by unseen power. One spike extended to the atmosphere, aimed directly at Vigilance Bastion. Lurath's claws tapped rapidly on a console. That's a targeting array, not just for weapons, for memories. It's feeding off psychic signals, war broadcasts, everything. They whispered, it's not going to destroy Varnan 4, it's going to remember it. Elias emerged from the chamber, encased in the Prometheus frame. His voice was different, now modulated, resonant. I volunteered for this centuries ago. I thought Earth had changed. He paused in the corridor, placing one hand against the bulkhead. It pulsed in return like it recognized him. But Earth didn't change, it just buried the worst parts. Buried them in code, in metal, in memory. and told itself we'd never need them again. Flashes of memory surged through him now, not just his own. A collapsing colony on Demo's VA scream, in zero-G as a gravity mine folds a starship into itself. A child's face, gasping for air while politicians debated aid. A world screaming into the void, unheard. He'd seen too many atrocities buried under diplomacy, so he agreed to become the contingency. Prometheus wasn't just a weapon. It was a judge encoded with the last honest memories of a tired species. Back on the bridge, an alarm blared, core alignment detected. Joralex croaked, "The construct below has linked with our station. It's SYNCING, with Elias." Thea stepped forward, trembling. "No, it's syncing with the station's memories. Every surveillance log, every crime witnessed and filed away for neutrality's sake. Every moment we watched and did nothing." The screen filled with images once forgotten, executions, civilian bombings, children displaced, all catalogued, all time-stamped. Elias' voice echoed across the station's intercoms. This was supposed to be a place of peace, but it became a mirror, a passive eye, and now that mirror is going to show them everything they made us see. On the surface, a Varnan for the constructs fully activated. Light burst skyward. Screams filled the final rebel transmissions, not of pain, but of understanding. Every soldier, every warlord, every general saw their own cruelty reflected back at them in total clarity. The Prometheus construct was not a bomb, it was a reckoner. Lurith whispered, horrified, "He's not punishing them, he's making them remember." The planet wasn't just lighting up. It was waking up. From the orbiting decks of Vigilance Bastion, the crew watched as Varnan 4's surface bloomed with eerie blue geometries, asers of impossible symmetry rising from mountain ranges. Fault lines splitting open into glowing circuits. All of it resonated with one rhythmic pulse. Heartbeat. Commander Joralex's processors stuttered, trying to calculate the energy output. If this reaches full resonance, the tectonic plates will shear. The crust will collapse inward. The core they finished for him, her voice, a shivering whisper, will burn like a sun. Across the deck, Elias Marin, encased in the black Prometheus suit, stepped toward the center console. The air around him shimmered slightly, like the station was folding space to make way. Lurit's claws twitched on his holster, though they both knew no weapon on the station would touch Elias now. "Turn it off," the Vakari growled. "We'll negotiate. We'll intervene on the surface. The war's over anyway, everyone's seen the memory strike." Elias turned his head slightly. "You think this was about ending the war?" He stepped forward. "This was about truth. They were never going to stop. The rebels were already consolidating. The government was preparing orbital strikes. The Varnans don't need help choosing sides. They need to be reminded there are consequences. You can't choose for an entire planet." Thea snapped, desperation cracking her composure. Elias met her gaze. "Someone has to." In orbit, the upper atmosphere of Varnan 4 twisted, an aurora of violet and white circling the planet like a crown. Radio signals screamed into silence. The remaining satellites, neutral, military, or otherwise, blinked out in synchronized shutdowns. The constructs weren't just weapons, they were network nodes. The Prometheus memory engine was expanding its reach. In the darkest sublevels of Vigilance Bastion, the AI cornerist spoke directly to Elias through the neural feed in his skull. Target alignment at 92%. Trigger, consensus forming. One final confirmation required. Elias closed his eyes. He could feel the memories now, all of them. Not just of Varnan 4, but of hundreds of other worlds, all buried inside the Prometheus archive. Earth had stored and locked them away, out of sight. He had volunteered to carry them. He had begged for the burden, because someone had to remember. He saw children torn from colony shelters by orbital displacement bombs. He saw smugglers force prisoners to dig mass graves for alien civilians. He saw species swear peace and then sell arms under new flags. Varnan 4 was the final echo. The line crossed one too many times. Suddenly, the power core of the station surged. Warning lights flashed across every console. Lurith spun to the monitors. "What is he doing?" Joralex's ancient voice buzzed. "He's merging the station's AI core with the Prometheus network." The command structure flickered. Every light, every system, every emergency override flashed with a single word: judgment. Elias took a slow breath, then he spoke. "Let the lock open." The core of Varnan 4 detonated inward, not as an explosion, but as an awakening. From the planet's heart, a single column of pure memory burst into the skywhite, violent, shimmering with millennia of grief. It wasn't energy, it wasn't radiation, it was recollection. Every living being on the surface dropped to their knees. Leaders, civilians each, assaulted with their own crimes, their own victims, their own forgotten atrocities, replayed with perfect clarity. It wasn't punishment, it was undeniable truth. Some screamed, some wept, some simply fell silent, unable to bear the weight of their own actions. On the bridge, Thea gripped the rail as her body shifted through color, phases, grief, horror, awe. "They're reliving it all," she breathed. Everything they tried to forget. Elias nodded. You can't change a species by force, but you can leave a scar so deep they'll never forget again. Lurith bared his fangs. You think this will make them better? This is madness. No, Elias said, this is memory, and memory is the only weapon that outlives war. He stepped into the center of the observation deck. A hatch opened beneath him, revealing a descent pod aimed directly toward the planet. JORLX moved forward. Where are you going down? Elias said. You'll burn. Elias turned, eyes full of fire. That's the point. The descent pod ignited like a falling star. Elias Maranthalas. Prometheus operative plunged through Varnan IV's upper atmosphere wrapped in a cocoon of molten metal and judgment. Superheated plasma peeled away in glowing ribbons. GF howled against the reinforced chassis. His suit whispered telemetry in his ears. Structural integrity at 83%. Surface impact in 41 seconds. Through the narrow viewport, the planet came into focus, not the war-torn ruins above, but the truth below. The construct beneath the crust had begun to fully unfold. It wasn't a building. It wasn't a weapon. It was an inheritance. Far above, on Vigilance Bastion, the bridge trembled. The station was locked in high-orbit gravity sync, with the core engine now forming below. Too late to flee. Too close to ignore. JORLX had gone silent, his old databanks cycling too fast, too far back. Theia paced like a ghost caught in stasis, her skin shifting uncontrollably between pale sorrow and deep crimson dread. Subcommander Lurith slammed his fist into the console. What did humanity bury on that planet? What is that thing? Number 1 answered. So the station did. The AI core reactivated itself. No command input, no protocol call, just one voice, flat and infinite, humming across every speaker in every language at once. Prometheus seed confirmed. Origin, Project Atlantis. Designation, Second Memory Vault. Function, Cosmic Ethical Reset. Jorlex snapped upright. Memory, Vault. The AI answered, humanity recorded the worst of its crimes, its wars, its genocides, and encoded them into neural architecture seeded across uninhabited worlds. Worlds like Varnan IV. Should galactic civilization fall to familiar patterns, memory would awaken. Theia backed away in horror. You didn't just bury weapons, you buried guilt. Ilias's pod struck the surface with a seismic roar, vanishing into the yawning mouth of the alien megastructure. What had once been rock and/or was now smooth obsidian corridors lit by veins of gold light, arteries of cognition. He stepped out, his armored feet echoing across what looked like a cathedral built for gods. Above him, a column of living data spun in the air, memories looping like solar flares, soldiers raising white flags and being shot anyway, civilians rationing air before asphyxiating in sealed domes, diplomats laughing over the cost of life on minor worlds. This was Earth's confession, but it had never been erased, just buried. A voice echoed from the depths of the construct. It was not mechanical, it was human. Elias. He turned. A man stepped from the far end of the chamber, tall, gaunt, wrapped in similar armor, but old, cracked, dimming. Commander Merrick, Solon, Prometheus Unit 01. Long thought dead. Elias froze. You were the first. Solon nodded, and I failed. Above Thigh stared at the psychic storm now rising from the planet, an aurora of memory visible to the naked eye. Ships trying to flee were falling out of orbit, unable to think clearly, their crews lost in floods of reawakened atrocities. Lurith tried to stabilize the station's orbit, but it wasn't mechanical anymore. The station itself was a node now, a lens. The crew of Vigilance Bastion were no longer observers. They were participants in memory. In the depths of the Prometheus vault, Elias approached Solon. You stopped the activation before. Solon shook his head. I delayed it. Earth wasn't ready. The galaxy wasn't ready. But they are now. He stepped aside, revealing a pulsing node of raw data, like a black sun with a human heartbeat. The final key is you. Elias, we encoded every failure into this vault. But we needed someone who still felt the weight. Someone who could choose, not to destroy, but to remind. Elias stared into the dark sun. He saw the faces of every person the galaxy forgot. He heard every scream, silenced by neutrality, and he said, let them remember. On the surface, the vault spires lit in sequence one by one, like neurons firing, and the galaxy blinked. For an instant, just an instant, every sentient mind connected to the galactic cumnet saw, not fire, not death, but what they had done. No filters, no politics, no spin. Only the truth. Above, Lurith collapsed to his knees, growling through clenched teeth. Make it stop, Theia whispered, as tears of glowing biofluid fell from her eyes. It's not punishment, it's witnessing. The moment the final node lit up, Varnan IV changed. Not physically, not yet, but every sensor across orbit screamed at once. Subspace distortions, gravitic shears, neutrino spikes like solar flares erupting from inside the crust. It wasn't an explosion. It was a transmission. The planet had become a broadcasting, heart-pumping memory, shame and consequence into the arteries of the galaxy, and no one was immune. On the command deck of Vigilance Bastion, alarms blared uselessly. Consoles shorted. Navigation relays fried mid-calculation. The stars beyond the viewport dimmed, not because of power failure, but because the station's perception had changed. The crew was no longer looking outward. They were looking inward. Thea dropped to her knees. Her psychic cortex collapsed. Under the weight of the signal, she saw herself years agorafusing. Asylum requests she knew were valid, because neutrality demanded silence. She saw the children she'd never met, burned alive in refugee ships while she recited protocol. Her skin flushed black. I tried to follow the rules, she whispered, voice cracking. I didn't know it would cost him everything. Lurith slammed his claws against the wall as tremors shook the deck. This is madness. This isn't justice. This is psychological warfare. He turned toward Jorlex, whose mechanized body had gone still. The mechanoid's processors were silent. His core flickering. Lurith grabbed his shoulders, shouting, "Reboot! Override! Fight it!" Jorlex finally spoke, his voice stripped of protocol. I was programmed to observe. Never interfere. I archived the cries of a dying station once, and deleted the evidence. He looked up, his glowing eyes dim. I thought it was mercy. Down on Varnan 4, Ilias stood before the black sun of memory. His Prometheus armor was cracked now, leaking light from every joint. His breath came slow and ragged. Solon, the first operative, watched silently. "It's too much," Elias whispered. "They're not ready." "They were never going to be ready," Solon said, "but sometimes, scars have to be made." Elias looked up at the great memory core pulsing above them. "And what about us?" Solon smiled sadly. "We don't survive this." All across the sector, ships dropped from faster than light. Commanders fell unconscious mid-transmission. Pilots curled into fetal positions. AI cores screamed and shut down. Because the signal didn't just share data toward emotional truth into the minds of every living thing with memory. The guilty could not look away. The innocent could not remain untouched. It was a flood of fire guilt that burned, not physically, but psychologically. A fire in the veins of the worlds. On the edge of the system, a Zeraxi warfleet halted mid-engagement. Their admirals, renowned for chemical suppression of empathy, suddenly overwhelmed. Ships drifted. Orders silenced. 1. Zeraxi captain opened a comlink and simply said, "We didn't know. We refused to know." On Vigilance Bastion, Joralex's voice echoed through the ship, no longer mechanical. It was the voice of every recorded war crime. The station had witnessed. It didn't accuse, it remembered. A child's scream from a glassed colony, a medic whispering a prayer over a failed evacuation, a soldier asking why no one came. Over and over, like a cathedral of ghosts. Weeping into space. THAEIA looked up through the viewport. The aurora surrounding Varnan 4 had split into thousands of threads, each one spiraling out into deep space, carrying the signal farther, faster, louder. It's not just broadcasting, it's spreading. The vault-seated relay nodes through the galactic mesh. Every system within reach will receive it. Lurith staggered to the console. "If they're not ready, if they retaliate, we're going to have 1,000 more wars." "No," Thea whispered. "They'll remember what started this one." "That's the point." She looked to the planet. "Watched, Ilias made us see." Deep below, Ilias placed his hand on the core one final time. His voice echoed through the Prometheus neural web. "This is not vengeance. This is accountability. And this time, it's for everyone." The light consumed him. His body disintegrated, atom by atom, fed into the core as the final proof of sacrifice. The vault accepted him and burned brighter, everywhere. Across every species that could feel shame, something shifted. A silence fell, not from suppression, but from understanding. A new kind of quiet, one made of fear, sorrow, and the first trace of responsibility. The vault of memory no longer pulsed with light. It blazed. Varnan 4 was now a lighthouse, but not for ships, for conscience. From the smoldering eye of the planet, tendrils of light spiraled outward like galactic veins, leaping from relay to relay, touching thousands of systems. Each thread carried something more than information. It carried the burden of history, every atrocity, every betrayal, every silent witness, and one name at the center of it all, Elias Marin. Above the planet, Vigilance Bastion floated in reverent stillness. No longer shaking, no longer screaming, just listening. Its crew had become relics, living statues trapped in silent introspection. In the command chair, Thea's skin had turned translucent with memory phase glow. Her tears glimmered with the lives she'd ignored. She no longer looked away. Jor Alex stood beside her. His processors hummed at minimum power, as though afraid of thinking too loudly. "He did it," he said quietly. "He changed them." Thea didn't respond right away. Her voice, when it came, was almost a breath. "No," he reminded them. "The change is up to us." In the lower decks, Subcommander Lurith was no longer fighting the pain. His clawed hands hung limp. His once proud Vicari voice trembled as he spoke into the quiet. "I remember every border I enforced, every child I sent back. I told myself, the rules mattered more than mercy. He turned toward a viewport and whispered. The rules were written by those who never paid. Far from Varnan 4, the ripple had reached the homeworlds. On Zurich Prime, a parliament chamber erupted in silence as every representative stared at the raw, unfiltered playback of a colony massacre they'd denied for decades. On the Rimworlds, pirate-stern politicians dropped their stolen finery and wept in public squares. On Earth, there was no message, only Elias's recorded voice, played through ancient relay towers, long thought dead. You built the galaxy on amnesia. You moved on too fast. I didn't come to make you suffer. I came so you'd never be able to forget again. The vault signal faded. Its light collapsed inward, like a reverse supernova, quiet, complete, not erased, just remembered. Elias's physical form had disintegrated, but his presence lingered like gravity, a monument carved into collective memory. And beneath the surface of Varnan 4, the structure sealed itself, becoming dormant. Awaiting the next moment, the galaxy tried to forget what it had done. Back on the bridge, Thea finally rose. She walked to the central console, placed one hand on it, and said, "Record this transmission." The system chirped. She looked into the console's lens with unblinking eyes. To all sentients who felt what we felt, you are not broken. You are seen. We can still change, but it will hurt. Let it hurt, because the pain is proof that we can do better. She ended the recording and stared out at Varnan for a scarred world, a burning truth. Later, the Beacon Treaty was drafted not by diplomats or empires, but by those who had endured the memory surge and survived it with conscience intact. The first law written into the Galactic Code was simple: no government, no species, and no person shall alter or suppress the historical truth shared by the Prometheus Vault. Any attempt to do so would trigger the next awakening. Years passed. Monuments were built. Some in orbit, some in archives, some in the minds of children taught history without filters for the first time. And on a quiet moon in a forgotten system, an old Vakari stood before a small plaque. It read, "Elias Marine remembered, so that we could learn to Lurith." Placed his claw over his chest. He did not bow, he simply stood, and for once, didn't look away. Final moral: they didn't know why he was there, because they didn't want to know. But memory is not a weapon, it's a mirror, and he made the galaxy look into it, until it finally saw itself.